I'm Joan Sills, and you're joining us today on Lightbulb Leadership TV, where we interview successful CEOs that I think will be interesting and inspiring for everyone. And today we have Mo Brewster, the CEO of Mosaic Global Transportation. Welcome, Mo.
Thank you. Pleasure to be chosen to share thoughts.
Great. Well, you've got an interesting business. Why don't you tell everybody what the business is and how you started it?
Well, Mosaic Global Transportation is a global provider of ground transportation services. And what that means is that we move human beings, typically CEOs, from point A to point B as they travel around the country and around the world um, for business meetings. We also are a company that provides ground transportation services for meetings and events. And the biggest piece of our business is the employee shuttle end of the business, where we're moving, whether it be the last mile movement, so to a local train station or bus station to a corporate headquarters, or it could be we're going all the way into San Francisco, picking up 50 or so people for Google or Facebook or those type companies and moving them down to Silicon Valley. That the three segments of our business and what we do.
Okay, so the meetings and convention business obviously has been impacted dramatically by what we're all going through right now, COVID, the pandemic. So how has that impacted you?
It's been devastating.
Yeah.
We are a corporate transportation provider.
Yeah.
And corporate is shut down.
Right.
So that's devastating. Now we have had some lingering pieces of business with one or two major corporations, and that's just because they're doing things with the federal government.
Oh, okay.
And they are allowed to be open. And thus we are providing transportation, but that only represents, if you look at the entire pie of 100%, it only brought back 15 to 20% of our business.
Wow.
So it's been devastating, and we've had to lay off quite a bit of people because meeting and events, that whole segment of our business is gone.
I mean, just hospitality in general, I mean, has been devastated more than anything else, I would think.
Exactly.
So tell me a little bit. I know there's a pretty interesting story to how you started this business. I know you didn't start with employee shuttles. So how did you start this? What made you say, okay, this is what I want to do? And what was it that you wanted to do?
So Rhonda, my wife, took me to a car show.
Okay.
And it was an antique car show that happened every Father's Day. And this year, we, walking the grounds of Stanford University, because that's where they had the show.
Okay.
And it hit me like a stack of bricks. I said, Rhonda, I think we could turn this car, this white Rolls Royce, into a business. And my wife, knowing me the way she does, she said, "You're just trying to fool me. You just want a Rolls Royce, right?" And I said, "No. I think we can turn this into a business." And one thing led to another. We did a lot of praying, which we do especially when we don't agree on things, and we don't agree on a lot.
Yeah.
But we eventually said, let's give it a shot. And so we started off as Rolls Royce limousine service,
Okay.
only doing weddings and special events in vintage Rolls Royces. And that's how it started. We ended
up. So did you buy that Rolls Royce?
We ended up not buying that one.
That one, but
because that one was in pretty bad shape. But it led us down the path to finding a Rolls Royce that we were comfortable with, and one that I would be comfortable with starting the business and putting people in it and driving them safely from point A to point B. And we ended up amassing the largest fleet of vintage Rolls Royces in the country. We had 13
Wow.
of 13
How
of them.
many? 13,
13.
13 Rolls Royces. Where did you keep
13
them?
Rolls Royce at our house.
You kept them at your house?
We kept them all at our house, and it was a very liberal Palo Alto,
Yeah.
and there was no restriction on how many vehicles you can park on the street, as long as they were legally parked.
Yeah.
So we found every inch to park even though they're beautiful vehicles. I
Yeah.
mean, it got a bit much. So
Yeah.
that's when we made a transition.
So, okay. So you started with Rolls Royces. What was this, about 20 years ago?
This was exactly 19 years ago. We're celebrating our 19th year in business,
Business. Right.
January 1st.
Wow, that's great. So you started with Rolls Royces and you got into transportation. When or how did it turn into something else?
Well, that's a good question. Glad you asked that question.
Yes.
We had, kind of tagging on to the parking a lot of vehicles in front of our home.
Sure.
Very, very nice home, by the way,
Yeah.
in Palo Alto. um, the local hotels, the Sheraton and the Westin Hotel on El Camino in Palo Alto.
Yeah.
We were doing a lot of weddings at those two properties, and the general managers of those two properties set up a meeting with me and asked if we would be interested in um, moving the vehicles from our home to their property. And they
Wow.
would provide parking, they would provide security. What they wanted was those pretty cars on their lot.
Yes.
A lot,
Rubbing shoulders with Rolls Royces.
exactly. A lot of
Yeah.
eye candy, and it worked for
Yeah.
both people. And then we continued to grow the business until they came to me another time, both of them, for lunch. And I knew it couldn't be bad news.
Right.
Who fires you at
Right.
lunch,
Right.
right?
Right.
So they said, Maurice, we like what's going on. Would you be interested in moving our corporate customers that come to the hotels for their business meetings and whatever? And I said, sure. I mean, why wouldn't I do that?
Yeah.
And they said, okay, great. And I said, you sure that they're gonna be okay with being driven in Rolls Royces? And they said, oh no, no, no. You've got to go buy regular cars. And I told him, I said, that's not what I do.
Right.
I am a specialty car company providing transportation services for weddings and special events, wine tours, and things of that nature. And Joan, they opened up their books and showed me how much business they were sending to local limousine companies.
Yep.
The next day, Rhonda and I bought regular cars.
Right. That's
And
great.
there was our first pivot,
Yeah.
where we
Absolutely.
pivoted from just doing special events to doing special events and corporate business.
Yeah. So when you did that for a while, when did it really expand into most of what you do now? The meetings and convention, the big, transportation pieces. And then I know the shuttle was somewhat recent too.
Right. So with that partnership with the Sheraton and the Westin Hotel, we continued to do a combination, a hybrid of services.
Yeah.
For the next 3 to 4 years. So from 2002 to 2006, we did a hybrid, and then it was clear that the meat and potatoes of our business was going to be moving corporate people every day,
Yeah.
as opposed to waiting to just Saturdays and Sundays to move brides. And as we started to grow that end of the business, the wedding and special events business and the Rolls Royces started to diminish because we
Yeah.
started focusing our time where the money was.
Right. Right. I think it is your story, although other businesses have different businesses that their models. So many people have gone through something similar where they started somewhere because it was fun, or they thought it was a good idea. And then things happen, light bulbs go on, that, gee, maybe there's another variation on this, and oh, this is where you really make money, and then this is what you turn it into. So, I mean, that's something that's so, such a great story of going with what made sense to grow the business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what's been the most fun of all this?
The journey.
Yeah.
I went to school, I studied business. Um, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but
Yeah.
I was really a good intrapreneur. I was really a good employee that took what I was doing as a sales employee, because that's my background. It's
Yeah.
been sales and sales management. So I always took that as my own business. And that's when I turned to Rhonda and I said, you know what, I'm making these companies hundreds of millions of dollars. I said, Rhonda, I can make us $1 million. And she said, go to work. Don't be thinking about this craziness.
Yeah.
And one thing led to another. And as the business started growing, that's when then Rhonda came into the business, because
Yeah.
she saw I needed help. Because I'm the visionary in the company. I'm kind of the Lucy of the I Love
Yes.
Lucy
Yes.
relationship. I have the wild
It
ideas,
is.
and my wife is always good at saying, Lucy,
Yeah. I don't
I
know.
don't know about that. Anyway, so she came into the business and then started putting some structure into the business of what we were doing, which then set us up for the next pivot,
Yeah.
which was in 2014. We were approached by Apple Computer, and they asked us, would we be interested in looking into doing employee shuttle services?
Right.
And we said yes, and we won one of 3 RFPs back to back to back, which then led us to getting the Google contract, which then led us to getting the Merck contract, which then led us to get the Roche contract, a Roche, I should say, excuse me,
Yes.
contract, and then most recently the Facebook
Yeah.
contract, and
That's
and now the employee shuttle aspect of our business represents 75 to 80% of what we do.
which is great. And it probably is something that saved you to some degree during this time,
Absolutely.
because even though lots of employees weren't in their companies, they were probably still doing some shuttles where meetings and conventions don't exist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Let me ask you, so you've built this company over 19 years. Tell us a little bit about the culture. What kind of culture did you build and why?
Well, so I go back to my early days when I graduated from college and I went to go work for the E.I. DuPont de Nemours and Company
Okay.
Incorporated. Very fond
Yes.
of DuPont. And DuPont made an indelible mark on me as far as what was important. And DuPont always focused on the employee. If you have an environment that fosters uh, good things for the employee, it will translate into good things for the company. And as a matter of fact, that was their motto back in the 70s, late 70s. Good people through good chemistry. It
Right.
was their motto.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, if I'm going to start a company, it'd be great to take what I've learned from DuPont and other companies,
Sure.
but mainly it was DuPont, to say, let's build a culture where the employee is our biggest asset. Not the assets of the business, not the customers,
Yeah.
but if we take care of the employee will take care of the company and the customers, and
Right.
that will allow us to grow.
Wow.
So that was important to Rhonda and I.
Yeah.
And then the other core values of honesty, integrity, safety, those just filled in some of the gaps of what we needed to do. We move people.
Yeah.
And God forbid if something was to happen, it could be devastating to the business. So safety had to be
Huge.
super important.
Yeah. And I'm not sure people that aren't in the business think about that, but that's got to be core to your business, safety and training.
Yes.
Let me ask you one other thing. As you've gone through COVID, you've had to make tons of changes. Like you said, you've had to lay off people, you've had to change what you're doing. Luckily, you had a little bit of a base of business that stayed. But what did you learn through going through COVID that you think you will continue to do even after it's over?
That's a great question. You've done your homework.
Good.
You know, what Rhonda and I spent the latter part of 2020, early part of 2021, coming up with this plan, kind of a reflection of what we learned. And we learned a lot.
Yeah.
And mainly what we found out is that we have an opportunity with COVID to restructure the business so that it makes sense. We structure the business so that we found that there are things that we were doing from an operational point of view that we didn't necessarily need to do, but we did it because we had been doing it for so many years.
Yeah.
So we were able to retool. You know, we were able to look at the company and reinvent the company so that as we move out of COVID and into 2021 and beyond, we will be a much leaner
Yeah.
and a much more profitable business because we're able to integrate technology and integrate just some fine tuning of
Yes.
how we are running the business to run it better, to run it more profitably, and to more importantly, deliver what we need to deliver for our customers.
That's
So,
great. That's such a great learning that, a lot of times, so many companies, we keep going the organizational structure, how we've done business, because that's how we've always done it. And to have something, out of your control come up and, put on this light bulb of this is a perfect opportunity to rethink what we want to do. And the fact that you're taking advantage of it is terrific. So Mo, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it. We're looking forward to seeing what you guys do in 2021.
it's gonna blow you away, Joan.
I think it's great.
It's gonna be good, and I tell you the guidance and tutelage and direction that you've given through Vistage to Rhonda and to me is invaluable.
Great.
You'll be in chapter 8, I think, of the
book. Perfect. Well, thanks so much. Thanks for taking the time. I know you've got a lot to do, but hope to, maybe do this again at the end of the year and see how you guys are doing.
My pleasure.
Okay, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Whoa.